We are back with another book from Lisa Kleypas. And this one is called
Smooth Talking Stranger.
So, I just want to point out right from the start again, I know this type of book is not written for me, male, middle aged. I'm not the target demographic. But I like reading fiction, and I've become fond of this particular author. She's very prolific as a writer, and there's no shortage of her books at the library. And now that I've read, this is my fourth one of hers. And I just want to point out, I'm only about halfway through it, so there's plenty of room for this book for the story to go in all different kinds of directions. But a lot of thoughts popped into my head as I'm getting deeper into it, and I just wanted to discuss it. And I'll have a brief reading at the end of this. So just to set this up, this book was written in 2009. And I'm not reading any of Lisa's books in any particular order. It's just kind of how I'm finding them at the library. This one would be considered even more misogynistic by today's standards than any of the others that I've read recently. And we're going to get into that a little bit. So right away, the setup of this story just made me laugh. I can now say with relative certainty that not just Lisa Kleypas, but just about any author that writes about traditional romances between men and women, it is funny how much they describe the same guy. That, like, this dream guy that comes into their lives is basically, all right, so here's the template. This is the template that I've noticed. We'll have a woman that she might be attractive, but a lot of times she'll be described as being kind of just like average to like above average. Like, not like she's not a 10, she's not a supermodel, she's just kind of there. A lot of times she's like a single mom. And due to circumstances or some unusual situation, she'll be matched up somehow with this amazing guy who'll be like 6'4", just chiseled good looks, muscular, and then to top it all off, he's also going to be like incredibly successful both from a business standpoint and from a financial standpoint. There's very little deviation. The only deviation that seems to crop up is when whichever particular author wrote the novel, she might have some specific preference for a hairstyle and color. That's about it. It's like the guy might have like shorter hair or longer hair. It might be brown, might be black. The eyes might be brown, or they might be like steel blue, like a storm. But that's about it. Otherwise, these guys are kind of interchangeable. And when this story opens up, you know, we've got Ella, our female protagonist, and then we've got Jack Travis. He's just kind of this Houston like business tycoon. And in the scene that Lisa Kleypas describes about when Ella sees Jack for the first time, he just hits that mold completely. There's nothing. I mean, it made me laugh out loud, like just how cookie cutter he was. And the thing is, I'm not upset at all about, you know, people should have their preferences. And most women, whether they want to admit it or not, are attracted to, you know, tall, muscular, successful men. So I totally get that. If she had described the scene where Ella first sees Jack, and she described him as, and then I saw him when he walked through the door, all 5'9" of Asian dispassion, I knew he was the one. His somewhat round and average-looking face masked the low-income earnings potential and slight lack of ambition that just made my nether regions moist. Like, you would never see that in any kind of romance novel unless you're trying to do, like, just some extreme comedy. Then it becomes a slapstick comedy. On a side note, you know, when talking about preferences, I just want to point out, I never get offended or anything when, you know, whether it's movies, TV, or in a romantic novel. Like, the creators, especially if it's like a female creator, they never describe anyone that ever looks like me. And it just reminds me of that story about that billboard in, I think it was London or Britain, where it was an ad for a beach body. And all these angry feminists protested it and they demanded it be taken down because they said that the model that was featured on it created like unrealistic expectations for what a female body should look like. Which is really funny because the model that this particular ad agency used, she wasn't a 3D render that was made on a computer. It's an actual woman. So in fact, she's 100% realistic. But yeah, all these women got mad and they had the that ad removed, and I think they replaced it with just like three like kind of average looking women, and anyone can go to the beach, I guess, but I guess their point was, don't make us strive for anything. And conversely, when a guy sees like a men's fitness magazine or like Flex Workout or one of those, bodybuilding magazines, like a regular guy sees that, basically one of two things happens. Either he looks at that cover model and literally nothing pops into his head, or he looks at it and he's just like, it's probably gay. That's it. That is it. Maybe there's a small percentage of guys that'll look at that and be like, yeah, I should try to get into shape. But most likely, guys just don't care. So, and I don't care that Lisa Kleypas does not describe me in the slightest when she's creating her model of the perfect man. So with that said, I want to read a passage from this book. This is like, by today's standards, like all out misogyny. But I mean, it was written by a woman, and we're gonna read this. And I just want to point out, this is supposed to be taking place in Houston, Texas. And I am not a professional voice actor, although I would love to be one. I don't think I have the talent for it, but I do have the interest in it. So I'm going to try a very bad Texas accent for y'all. So we'll see how it goes. And this one in particular is written from the female perspective. So the inner monologue is also female, so I guess I'm going to try to read it like that. It's going to be nuts! Here we go.
If I had been thinking rationally, I never would have allowed it. Jack's mouth brushed slowly over mine before settling with a gentle pressure. I moved against his unyielding weight until I found some perfect, unexpected alignment that sent heat jolting through me. My knees gave out, but it didn't matter because he was holding me so securely. One of his hands came up to my jaw with extreme care. Every time I tried to finish the kiss, he pressed harder, coaxing me to stay open, tasting slowly. This was so different from what I was accustomed to, it seemed like something other than kissing. I realized that my kisses with Dane had become a form of punctuation, the quotations or the hasty dash at the end of a conversation. This was softer, more urgent and relentless. Wild, fresh, tumbling kisses eroding my balance. I groped Jack's shoulders, my fingers curving over the hard nape of his neck. He took a quick breath and reached down, his hands sliding over my pajama bottoms as he coaxed my hips high and tight. The full-on pressure of him was stunning, galvanic. He was unbelievably hard. Everywhere. He was in control, infinitely stronger, and he wanted me to know it. He kissed me until the sensations flowed in directions I couldn't go, spilling and sliding darkly. As I felt a desperate ache cambering low in my body, I finally understood that if I slept with this man, he would take everything. All the defenses I had built would be destroyed. Shaking, I pushed at him and managed to turn my head long enough to gasp. "I can't. No. That's enough, Jack." He stopped at once, but he kept me against him, his chest moving hard and fast. I couldn't look at him. My voice was hoarse as I said, "That shouldn't have happened."
I've wanted this since the first second I saw you.
His arms tightened, and he bent over me until his mouth was close to my ear. Gently he whispered,
You did too.
"I didn't. I don't."
You need some fun, Ella.
I let out an incredulous laugh. "Believe me, I don't need fun. I broke off with a gasp as he pressed my hips closer to his. The feel of him was more than my dazzled senses could handle. To my mortification, I hitched up against him before I could stop myself, heat and instinct winning out over sanity. Feeling the reflexive response, Jack smiled against my scarlet cheek.
You should take me on. I'll be good for you.
"You are so full of yourself. You would not be good for me, with your steaks and power tools and your attention deficit libido, and I bet you're a card-carrying member of the NRA. Admit it, you are." I couldn't seem to shut up. I was talking too much, breathing too fast, jittering like a wind-up toy that had been wound to the limits of its mechanism. Jack nuzzled into a sensitive place behind my ear.
Why does that matter?
"Is that a yes? It must be. God. It matters because... Stop that. It matters because I would only go to bed with a man who respected me and my views. I broke off with an inarticulate sound as he nibbled lightly at my skin.
I respect you
he murmured.
and your views. I think of you as an equal. I respect your brains and all those big words you like to use. But I also want to rip your clothes off and have sex with you until you scream and cry and see God.
His mouth dragged gently along my throat. I jerked helplessly, muscles jolting with pleasure, and his hands gripped my hips, keeping me in place.
I'm going to show you a good time, Ella. Starting with the take no prisoners sex. The kind when you can't remember your own name after.
I've been with Dane for 4 years, I managed to say. He understands me in a way you don't.
I can learn you.
It seemed as if something inside me had started to unravel, weakness spreading, all my body tightening against it. I closed my eyes and bit back a whimper. When you offered me the apartment, I said weakly, you implied you had no ulterior motives. I don't appreciate the position this puts me in, Jack. His head lifted, and his lips brushed the tip of my nose.
What position would you prefer?
My eyes flew open. Somehow I managed to twist away from him. Half sitting, half leaning on the arm of the sofa, I pointed to the door with a trembling finger. Go, Jack. Jack looked as sexy as hell, rumpled and aroused.
You're kicking me out?
I could hardly believe it myself. I'm kicking you out. I went to get my glasses, fumbling to put them back on. His mouth had turned sullen.
There's more we need to talk about.
I know, but if I let you stay, I don't think we'll do much talking.
What if I promise I won't touch you?
Our gazes caught. It seemed the entire room was filled with volatile heat. You'd be lying, I said. Jack rubbed the back of his neck and scowled.
You're right.
I tilted my head toward the door. Please go. He didn't move.
When can I see you again? Tomorrow night?
I have work.
The day after?
I don't know. I've got a lot of stuff to do.
Damn it, Ella.
He went to the door.
You can put it off now, but you'll just have to deal with it later.
I'm a big believer in putting things off, I told him. In fact, I even put off procrastinating. He gave me a smoldering glance and left, carrying the empty crib box with him. Slowly, I cleared away the clutter in the kitchen and wiped the counters, made Luke's bottles. I kept stealing glances at the phone. It was about time for my nightly talk with Dane, but it remained silent. Was I obligated to tell him what had happened between me and Jack? Did an open relationship allow for secrets? And if I confessed to Dane about the attraction I felt for Jack Travis, what good could possibly come of it?